Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we recapped our experiences with Natlan so far after the 5.0 update. But this week, we're going back to Inazuma to talk about our second favorite detective after Detective Paimon, Shikanoin Heizou.
Are you looking for some clues to deduce your next theory? Well, sleuth your way on over to our website, talesofteyvat.com, where each episode has its own page of visual evidence to help you investigate all of those suspicious words and sounds we left behind at the sea.
While you're on our site, check out our past episodes and seasons, artist spotlights from the community for every topic, and some other goodies.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. Additionally, please feel free to give us a rating on wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that be Apple, Spotify, or some unknown platform that we are unaware of. It really helps to make sure that other travelers can find content that they like or that they want to question, whichever is your fancy. That being said, we're going to talk now about the first male catalyst in the game.
Oh, yeah.
A man who truly only talks with his fists and is said to have had a mullet, according to the Hoyo Wiki when describing how he looks.
What?
That's what it says. It says he has a short mullet.
He is a short mullet.
He is a short mullet. I actually find Heizou's character really interesting. I find his dynamics very curious, and the way that the fandom has taken him under their wing and shipped him with every other anime character. And he's like a great character, but he never shows up in any main story quests. He hasn't been in the arc one at all, which is weird because he's a detective for the Tenryou Commission.
But he's shown up in events.
Yeah.
And his hangout.
And his hangout, and in our hearts.
And in our hearts, yes, and in our pants. I just mean the fandoms at large, not mine personally.
Yeah, AO3 is obsessed with Heizou. Like, obsessed. I mean, we talked, 2 weeks ago about one of my favorite TikTokers who literally does a TikTok series about Scaramouche, Kazuha, and Heizou being a throuple. So, I mean, if that's just one example, we've already brought up how much people love Heizou and shipping him with other people.
Yeah, he's a fun character.
And I think he was like one of the first ones to do something interesting with his movements and stuff. Like the fact he does martial arts, he's a catalyst, but he's still actually punching people in the face. I think that was one of the first times we saw something like that. And I think that also appealed to people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone was clamoring for, a male catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
And, making him a hand-to-hand combat person with that male catalyst was like a fun choice. Plus, he's just like really flirty and playful. And I think people like that too.
Oh, he has one of the most seductive birthday arts known to all of Genshin kind. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But I remember seeing him being like, oh, were they hacked?
Oh my God.
And he's literally like reading a book, leaning against a tree with like his mouth wide open. He's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's a lot, guys. It looks like he might be, moaning potentially.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm just saying. I mean, look at it yourself.
Who doesn't do that when they read books?
You're not wrong. And then where he's got his hand too.
It's a lot, guys. I'm just saying. He was posing for someone, and I don't think it was me. But it might have been the Traveler.
I don't think that book was as boring as they were trying to make it seem.
Do you think that he was reading a smutty book?
I bet it was like Crime and Punishment.
It was just the case files. It's like cold case files. Start him right on.
Heizou, what are you doing?
It was before Sun and Moon.
Well, Heizou, I don't know if you guys are aware, Heizou wants to be an author because he thinks that detectives should also be published. And he's like on the Traveler's ass about trying to meet Yaimiko and get a book published. He wants to write like a detective novel. And we're like, no. I think we're trying not to make anyone more subjected to Yaimiko than they need to be. And I think that she would try to eat Heizou alive, like Goru.
Yeah, he could take her on, I think.
I don't know. You can't punch your way out of Yaimiko.
I don't know. I feel like he's one of the few people that is maybe not an even match, but that could go a little bit toe to toe with her.
Like with the sass and the snark and the comments.
Well, just with like not being manipulated because he observes and catches everything.
That's true.
He would be the one to like see through her a little bit, I think.
Okay, I love that.
It's a new ship.
No! But so we know that he's the first animal catalyst. He's anima, which means, automatically he has to have a dead friend somewhere. So be prepared, get your tissues if you need them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't know who the dead friend is, though, right? Like, we've never met or heard of a dead friend.
We don't have a name.
We don't have the name.
We know out of history that there's definitely somebody there.
No, we know the story in his stories. It tells the story of the dead friend.
There is a dead friend? Why did I
Yes.
assume there's a dead friend?
Yeah, there's a really sad story.
Oh, shit, there is a dead friend. Oh, my
Yes.
God. Oh, I'm such an idiot.
Very sad dead friend moment.
They were on a friend break. Whatever.
Wow, they were on a break. It didn't count? What are you, Ross? Wow.
I can't believe that I totally forgot about his dead friend. I'm so dumb.
Next thing you know, Tiff's going to start yelling pivot in her teapot.
I could just imagining Tiff doing the Ross scream, like, he was on a break.
Oh, my goodness.
So Heizou is a young detective that works in the Tenryou Commission. He's actually a Doushin, but he says that might be my official title, but I'm more of a detective myself. And in Japan, a Doushin is like a low-level soldier, and they typically do like police work, and they might go around knocking on doors, do some like general investigation stuff. The whole time I'm learning about Heizou, all I could think about is like Law and Order and him sitting at one of those like metal desks with like with Paimon's detective fit.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think in the context of his story, like Doushin for him, I don't know about y'all, but I kind of got the vibe that it equated to what we think of as just like a junior detective.
Yeah, definitely. Or someone who like at least needed like to be
Like
they couldn't be on their
supervised.
own. Yeah, they had to be supervised.
Well, I thought it was interesting too. In his miscellany video, Dainsleif says that like there's technically no job description called detective. He's already a detective. And it's like that does seem like he is kind of like that go-getter just from the junior kind of side of things. Like he's like, I'm more than I appear to be. Like I've given myself a title. It doesn't even exist in this place, but that's how awesome I am. Is that
And that's very Heizou.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
he's definitely a little cocky, at least on the outside. I don't know if he's actually that cocky. He might be though.
Yeah, he definitely comes across as cocky in certain scenarios.
Just thinking back to his birthday art, and that's not where my brain went.
Cocky.
I'm just gonna stop right there.
So, when Heizou was little, he actually grew up in a remote village. And I'm like, wow, is this one of our themes? Yao Yao, now Heizou, growing up in remote areas.
Uh-huh.
Also, where is this remote area of Inazuma? Like, where did he grow up? Because it's like, he didn't live on Watatsumi Island. We know that because he's like obsessed with vacationing there. And he couldn't live where all the poison was.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's where the ninjas live.
Where do the ninjas live?
We don't know.
I feel like there's like one village in Asuma, and that's it.
Yeah, like you can live like on Tatarasuna. There's like a few houses. That's it. Like, I don't know.
Maybe it's Kondo Village.
Konda Village? No.
That's not very remote.
It's not very remote, no, but it's a village. They do this all the time, though, with Shinyan. Like, she lives in the mountains of Liyue. Well, where?
Yeah.
That's true. Where is this town that you speak of, Genshin? Yeah. I would love to have a map of all the hometowns for these people, but whatever, fine. Maybe there's another island we don't know about in Inazuma.
You know how it is? The map is basically an abbreviated version of the quote-unquote real Teyvat.
Well, do you think it's possible that there's another island that they're going to release?
Maybe.
Like, because I could see there being an island, like, north of Narukami. Like, northeast of Narukami.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, again, whether they do or not, it doesn't get around the fact that there are things that are supposed to be in Teyvat that we don't see while we're running around the world.
Like Alice.
Yeah, or just like how long it takes to run from Springvale to Mondstadt.
True.
Maybe it's over in the Dark Sea area that lives off between Sumeru and Inazuma.
Maybe there's just like little pocket worlds within each region.
It's also like, did Heizou have a boat if he's on a different island? I don't know.
I feel like everybody in Inazuma needs a boat. Like everything's an island away, you know?
Everyone should get their own wave rider.
I want to tell you, the only person that has a boat is Beidou, officially, on the record. How did Kokomi and Goru get to Narukami for that one event? How did they get over to where they did the negotiations with Kujo Sara on Yashiori Island?
I guess it's got to be the Wave Riders.
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems like plebeian shit for them to be using.
It's like public transportation.
Oh, you think there's like ferries? Like the Staten Island ferry.
The Wave Rider is like a city bike.
Oh, an electric boat?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds not good. That sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
I mean, there's enough electricity in those waters. They don't need to even fuel it up in that case.
Yeah, very true.
Well, electricity aside. So Heizou is from this remote village. And in this remote village, who your parents are and who your family line is quite important. And Heizou comes from a line of martial artists, or at least his dad was a known martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
But Heizou didn't want to follow in his dad's footsteps at all. He was not into it, and he seems very depressed in this little village.
It gives Gaming vibes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of daddy issues.
Because his father, I think he taught martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm going to have to take on my dad's job at some point. He was like looking out the window like, one day I'll fly away.
Very Hilary Duff of him as well. But Heizou one day goes to a festival and he meets this kid, and the two of them hit it off. And the kid says that they are the son of a merchant who has been to Fontaine and Sumeru and is always bringing like cool books and toys and trinkets and things.
Yes, claiming they were from his family's storehouse because he said he was from a wealthy merchant family.
And so this kid starts to give these gifts to Heizou, and they start hanging out and they're like BFFs. But then Heizou's intuition starts to kick in. This will not be the last time you hear about Heizou and his fucking intuition.
Yeah, and this is over like the course of, I believe, years. Like they grew closer and became best friends. I think it was when he was a little bit older, he started being like, hey, something isn't adding up here about this friend.
Yeah, he notes that like the friend had on kind of like raggedy clothes and didn't always seem to have like the most money on them type of thing. And it seemed weird that they were from like a rich merchant family, but then wasn't dressed like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His dirty clothes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he approached him. And the kid very quickly was like, you found me out. I'm actually fucking poor. And I actually stole all these items.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from the local merchants guild. And also, the first time that we met at that festival, I was actually planning on stealing from you. Isn't it wild that we became best friends? And he's like laughing about this.
Yeah.
Heizou, on the meanwhile, is mortified. It's like all of his code of ethics have just gone out the window.
He's furious.
Yes.
And he's like, I break up with you.
Mm-hmm. Our friendship is over.
Yeah, like this relationship is over. And then he runs home, destroys all the gifts that his friend had given him, except for, of course, a green pebble, which was one of a pair of green pebbles that the two of them had fished out of a river together. So he kept that because, well, he was going to keep it at first because it was the one item that wasn't tainted by his friend's theft. But then he got so mad, he throws it out the window. And it bounces off the window lattice and flies back inside and rolls under his bed. And then he doesn't find it again until a year later when the festival rolls back into town. And he sees the pebble and he, for some reason that he's not really quite sure of, which is funny considering how strong his intuition is, he picks it up and puts it in his pocket and takes it with him to go to the festival.
Yeah, where he's maybe consciously, but most likely unconsciously, hoping that he'll run into this friend again.
Yeah. And then he does.
And when he arrives, we are introduced to dead friend, or I should say dying friend.
Yeah.
Almost dead friend who's hanging out on the side of a road, bleeding out all over the place because some thievery criminal guy was trying to steal his Mora purse. And he wouldn't let it go. He was going to hold on to it. And the dude stabbed him like in the heart.
Which, like, so specific. How did he find the heart? So
Yeah,
quickly.
Was it in the heart?
Yes, it's very specifically in the heart.
I think they had to make sure you knew that he was dead.
He was
Like,
going to die.
He was
yeah.
going to dead. This guy wasn't going to like pop up like years later somewhere else.
Right.
He might still.
I mean,
You
there's
never know.
ghosts in Azuma, so
Could be in the Night Kingdom.
yeah.
Stop.
And so Heizou rushes to his friend dramatically. He's holding onto the green pebble at the time and he drops it. And his friend sees the green pebble and his eyes light up. And he's like, "Did you come here to see me, Heizou?" And Heizou's like, shut up, don't speak. And he's like trying desperately to stop the bleeding, but of course it won't stop. And it's like actually very graphic because it's like the blood is like pouring out in between Heizou's fingers.
Yeah.
And his friend opens the coin purse that the guy tried to steal from him, and there's no more in it. The only thing in it was the other pebble.
So
And
sad.
he holds his pebble out with a huge smile while he's dying. And he's like, "I came here to see you too." And then he dies.
Crying.
Mhm.
I know this is gonna sound dramatic, but I feel like this is the worst dead friend situation we've heard. And I know that like all the other dead friends were like Toma was struck down by the Shogun, Venti's best friend died at war, but they were like kind of adulty when that happened. Like Heizou's a kid.
And they had been estranged, and it's like, what would have happened if he hadn't been stabbed and they just ran into each other?
They could be married.
Wait, are you saying it's Heizou's fault that his friend died? Because had they not had that fight and he wasn't walking around with a purse full of a pebble, he then would have let it go because whatever, it's just Mora. It's not worth getting stabbed in the heart for.
I mean, I do wonder if Heizou, to a degree, blames himself a little bit.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because this is kind of what sets him off to become a detective.
Yeah, this really was a defining moment for him. And I mean, obviously a very traumatic moment, but also set the course of his life because, you know, he was filled with so much rage at all the sort of injustice in the world and how it sort of dips its toe into everything. Like it didn't just dip its toe into making his friend deceive him, but it also dips its toe into causing his friend's death by, you know, via some other random person. And so like a month later, he's been stewing in that mindset. And that's when he sort of snaps, writes a goodbye note, and leaves home on a quest to sort of wage war against evildoers of the world, which is also what grants him his vision.
Mm-hmm.
And he has an interesting mentality where he says something along the lines of, by the time you've been hired to be a detective, a crime has already been committed. And he suggests that his goal in life is to stop the crimes before it can happen and to seek out the justice before anything bad can happen. And I do feel that's his way of being like, if I had been able to tell earlier on that something was going on with my friend, or if I had gotten there earlier, I may have been able to stop this. If I had continued to be friends with him, maybe he wouldn't have been holding on to the green pebble like that.
It's interesting because he does sort of arrive at that place. I'm not sure if he was immediately like that or if that happened after he co-founded the detective agency.
Which was a shocker to me. I had no idea that he was a co-founder of I guess it's currently the Bantan Sango Detective Agency, but it used to be the Bantan Sango and Heizou Detective Agency.
Why did Sango get both names? Heizou just got one.
He's that diva.
Yeah. I mean, he really is, because I took his whole thing of like, you know, trying to stop crime before it even happens is like people would be like, oh shit, let me not do this crime because Heizou is going to come after me. Like he wants to be like putting fear in people's minds.
That is definitely his goal.
Well, that's why he and Sango eventually parted ways. Like they co-found this detective agency and they realized at a point that they have two different philosophies of what is important. I mean, for Sango, she believes that a detective's entire mission is to uncover the truth. But Heizou believes that there are things bigger than the truth, namely punishing evildoers. And he wants his name to strike so much fear in evildoers' hearts that they will come to know that they mess up. Heizou will be the one that tracks them down and follows them to the ends of the earth to make them pay. So it's almost like his ultimate goal is to his dream is to sort of vanquish evil altogether, but he knows that that's not really possible. So instead of that, his big goal is to just sort of be a symbol of fear for criminals and It's very prime deterrence as life goals.
Yes, but it's just such an odd thing. And for travelers who might not remember, the Bantan Sango Detective Agency, you actually have a few quests there. And there's one where you have to go save dogs. I think that might have been actually a special event where there was animals and you had to go save them with Ryuji, who is another detective at the Bantan Sango Detective Agency. He is considered more of Sango's assistant. He was originally a Doushin, which is what Heizou is now, and he ended up losing his job, even though Sango, through her detective work, was able to prove that he was innocent.
Yeah, he was framed for his boss's murder.
Which, wild shit happening in Inazuma, like normal.
Yeah.
And he decided that he didn't want to go back to that job, even though he could have, and he decided to work for Sango. And in my opinion, he is Sango's Toma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Not in the romance way, though.
Right. They have a similar personality, but Ryuji is a great character. I actually, after researching more, I'm kind of shipping Heizou and Ryuji together.
What? Wait, why?
Because they sort of switched places in an interesting way. And Ryuji's case was really important in the course of not only Sango's life, but also Heizou's. And Heizou has really sweet things to say about Ryuji, and actually sort of kept things hidden. If you play his hangout, he actually keeps information from Sango, which drives her absolutely nuts. But he does it to protect Ryuji from finding bad things out about the boss that got killed, who Ryuji saw as a father figure.
Oh, it's he was into some shady shit and Heizou was trying to protect him from that.
Yeah, so Ryuji's mentor / foster father was basically the police chief.
Okay.
And he was trying to get a forensic expert at the police station to make a poison for him to use.
Oh my God.
Not just a little bit of shady shit. He wasn't
just a little shady shit,
passing extra mora over under the counter.
Yeah, no, there's poison development. And he sort of blackmails him by implying that he could mess with his wife, this forensic expert. So the forensic expert was actually already working for the Kujo clan. Remember the evil head of the Kujo clan that we get rid of?
Yes.
So that the Kujo clan actually is trying to get rid of the police chief because there's a power struggle going on. So they actually get the forensic expert to kill him and frame Ryuji. But then Sango takes on the case and realizes that there's evidence that it's actually the forensic expert. And so the Kujo clan convinces the forensic expert to kill himself and leave a confession note saying that it was all his idea.
Wild. This is somewhere you would expect Navia to be, right? In hindsight, you're oh yeah, that's some mobster kind of shit. Navia would fit right in.
I just want to take a quick step back for travelers who might not 100% remember the Inazuma arc online. So we mentioned that Heizou currently works for the Tenryou Commission, which is a part of the Tri Commission. They're the three families, really, that rule over Inazuma, even though they're not just families type of thing, but they come back to a family. And the Kujo clan is in charge of the Tenryou Commission. That is Kujo Sara, who is adopted into the family. And she has two adopted brothers and an adopted father. And they are the executive branch for the Raiden Shogun. And it's their responsibility to be the police, to be security, to be the military. They were the ones who were Vision Hunt Decree, okay. And during the Inazuma arc online, we find out that the Kujo clan is the one that was giving out the delusions to the Watasumi army. They were in cahoots with the Fatui, giving out delusions to purposely wear them down. And we are able to convince Kujo Sara that someone is not good in their clan. And she actually comes to terms with us. And we are able to get her father, or her adopted father, to step down, even though he really had no choice. And her one brother, who I want to call him the nerdy brother out of the two of them, because the other one was a general that almost died over on Yashiori Island with the Orobashi shit. But the nerdier brother takes over the Kujo clan. So that is just a little bit about that for anyone who forgot.
Yeah, Kujo Sara's adopted father got Ryuji's adopted father killed.
There's a lot of adoption.
Yeah, and Heizou, he really sees Ryuji as sort of a pure soul who, he thinks that he would be crushed if he found out that his father figure was not a good guy.
Right.
Because, he's the one that originally tried to blackmail the forensic expert to create a poison. So he withholds information. And at the end of that hangout, you get to choose to tell the truth or not. So if you don't, Sango is basically like, I don't believe you, because her whole thing the whole time is that even though she proved that it was the forensic expert, she convinces herself that it was someone else. Like, she basically is like, I think it was someone from the Kujo clan, and I pointed my finger at the wrong person, and we need to figure out who it really was. And she knows that Heizou knows something and won't tell them. So she's furious about it and wants to get to the bottom of it. So you can either keep up the withholding of information, and Ryuji's like, oh, thank goodness. And Sango's like, damn it. But then you can also choose to tell them the truth, which is actually the better ending of the hangout. Because if you tell them the truth, Ryuji, of course, is devastated and like needs to take a day or two to himself. But Sango actually has a moment where she finally understands, because she's so shook by everything. She finally, she tells Heizou, I finally understand why you believe what you believe, that there are things bigger than just uncovering the truth, that there are things more important than that. And then the next day, I think you go and look for Ryuji, and he has come to terms with it.
Oh.
Sango was worried that he would have a breakdown, but you find him and he's playing with the daughter of the police chief. And she's like calling him uncle, and he's like, no, call me brother. She's like, but you're so much older than me. And he's like, I know, but I'm your brother. And that's because your dad treated me like his son. It's really sweet.
How did Heizou have this additional information, though, that Sango couldn't get? Was it his fucking intuition, or like...
It's kind of a long story, but it's like there was something missing from a report, and he goes to this one place, and then he finds something under a tile, like at the Kujo clan's warehouse.
That's the other thing that Inazuma likes. Warehouses, because
yes.
Just look inside drawers and you could find out old sword making recipes from Kazuha's family. Just sitting in a warehouse.
Find a bonsai tree, look to see if there's a secret compartment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not even secret. It was a fucking drawer. Like, it was right there.
Let's call it a secret compartment. Let's just make it a little like adventurous.
Let's be nice to them.
They died.
Oh, also, I did want to say one other cute little anecdote about Ryuji. He once rescued Takeru, who's the little boy that runs around Konda Village. And one day, Takeru got stuck on a cliff. Ryuji rescued him from the cliff, and now Takeru thinks that he's like this big hero, and he wants to be just like him. Very wholesome.
I love that. So he's like an unsung hero of Inazuma, Ryuji.
Well, he's an unsung hero to Takeru, but I mean, Takeru singing his praises, but he's just like a really good guy. And Heizou recognizes that, and that's why he was sort of trying to protect him. And it's funny because Ryuji and Heizou get along really well, and Sango hates it because she hates Heizou.
Which is sad. Especially, you would hope that, like, after the hangout ending, where she's like, I kind of get you now, that she might lighten up a bit.
Well, I think she might now after the hangout ending. But starting out, like when you first start the hangouts, she's like, I hate him. Let me know if he died. It'll bring me a lot of joy.
Yeah, like she's like seriously doesn't like him. Like it's not like, that guy, he's an asshole. It's, I wish your death upon you.
But you know how there's a thin line between love and hate?
Yeah, she's definitely a woman scorned, that's for sure.
Well, it's funny because she's like, let me know if you find out he's dead, because we're like going to look for Heizou at one point in the hangouts. And when you go to search for him where he was said to have been, you find Sango there. And you're like, what are you doing here? Are you looking for Heizou too? And are you worried about him? She's like, no, I'm just out for a walk. Leave me alone. So she definitely cares about him as much as she also hates him,
You think that they were a thing?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't know.
They always say you shouldn't date your coworker.
Yeah, maybe that's the real reason they split up. She's like, I'm keeping the agency. He's like, you can have it.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't believe in that anymore. So this is all happening. This hangout happens while Heizou is working for the Tenryou Commission. So to backtrack, he opens this detective agency. Him and Sango have a huge fallout, and he decides that he's going to go and try to join the Tenryou Commission. A few things to know: he's like a born rule breaker. People think he's really smart, but also annoying. Like, there's a pretty clear consensus that Heizou is frustrating to deal with, but we have no choice but to do it because he's so good at his job.
Yes.
He's like cheeky. he's very interesting. He actually, despite his martial arts, he's not a big fan of like blunt force. He would rather not fight them using his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a wild imagination, which he thinks truly aids him in all of this work. So he goes to apply for the Tenryou Commission, and you have to fill out this application. And part of that application is you have to declare what type of assets you have, which, like, I'm sorry, if my job wanted to know my assets, I would not be applying. They'd be like, I have 2 Mora and a bag of goldfish. What can you offer me? And when he hands in this like totally blank piece of paper. And the guy is like, Sonny, because it's like an old guy that kind of suggests. He's like, Sonny, you know, if you say on here that you got no assets, we're going to really have to look into you and do like a major background check because this is sus.
Well, yeah. Well, I feel that, so this was Yoriki Owada, and it almost to me seemed like he was trying to intimidate Heizou. So he's kind of like, I've met many brilliant young people. It's a shame none of them made it to the station in the end. Because he thought that Heizou was trying to sass him by giving him a blank paper. Like, I don't have to tell you what I have, you know, like I'm cocky. And he's just like, let me put this little youngster in his place. And then Heizou is like, oh, you want to go? Like completely changes its disposition, makes this like really intense eye contact, which he's really good at doing, just like stares at people and like unnerves them. So he does this to Owada and he's like, what about a young person like me? And he stares at him so hard that Owada gets intimidated himself and becomes nervous. He's like wiping sweat off his brow. Heizou laughs at him and is like, other than my genius, I have nothing to declare, which is so cocky.
Yeah. He was scared of that mullet.
He's like, oh, God, I don't know what to say to this little hipster.
And it's so funny that you bring up the fact that he said, like, the only thing I have is my genius or whatever. Mm-hmm. Because in another voice line area, in regards to his own skills, he says, I don't know, maybe this is something that even the gods can't do. Yeah. I'm like, whoa, Nelly.
Yeah.
Ego alert. Calm it down a little bit there, buddy.
But so he does end up getting into the Tenryou Commission. He does become a Doushin. And for a very long time, he is not getting a promotion. But people around him are getting promoted. People younger than him, newer than him, they're all getting promoted. Mm-hmm. So in comes Kano Nana. Now, Kano Nana is his distant oldest cousin, whatever that means. They don't seem that distant, in my opinion.
Yeah, they seem pretty close.
I mean, if she's, you know, barging into his place of business, I'm going to say they're pretty close.
Yeah, she's like ready to fight on his behalf. Now, most travelers know Kano Nana because she is a shrine maiden that babysits Sayu. She's the in charge of making sure that Sayu isn't sleeping on the job and that she's accounted for.
I love Kano Nana.
Oh, yeah. And you know who Kano Nana seems to be close with is Miyuki, another shrine maiden who is actually Kuki's older sister.
Mm-hmm.
So Miyuki actually notes that Kano Nana and Yaimiko are very close and they work together a lot, which is also interesting because we've had our suspicions about Yai and Ayato working closely together. So now they have a child of Sayu and Kano Nana together. But yeah, Kano is his cousin. Ooh, so sorry, Cosgrove. Cosgrove is underneath me because he heard something outside with the window open earlier and it spooked him. So I moved his bed under my desk.
And now you're kicking him. No wonder he hates you.
I literally just like kicked him in the face. Wow. He didn't really care.
You're scared.
So Kano is Heizou's cousin and she marches into his office one day and she's like, what the fuck is going on here? And Heizou's like, whoa, what are you doing here? And she's really pissed off that he hasn't gotten a promotion. She doesn't think it's right. And she's like, I'm going to go fight for you. I'm going to go talk to your boss, your boss's boss, your boss's boss's boss. I'll talk to Kujosara if I have to. Like, I'll talk to anyone. And he's like, Kano, no. I don't want a promotion. And he starts talking about one of the head police officers, someone who's super in charge. And he says, you know how many prisoners know that guy's name? And she's like, how many? And he holds up his hand and she assumes that he is saying 5. And he goes, and do you know how many of these prisoners know my name? And she was like, no. And he holds up the 5 again. And she goes, okay, so they know you guys equally? And he's like, no. Because he's also a fucking poet.
Or an asshole.
You're an asshole. He goes, the number of hairs on my hand is how many of those prisoners know my name. And he basically is saying, like, what Brandon actually referenced earlier, that he believes that the more criminals that know his name, the better. That is going to stop them from doing crime. And he thinks that if he's promoted, he's not going to be able to be on the front lines anymore, and his name will become unknown.
Right. Yeah, he's like holding up the back of his hand on one arm and the palm of his hand on the other, as if she's supposed to know that he was talking about the hairs on the back of his hand, and then the other hand is referencing 0 because it was the palm.
She's probably used to this shit.
Oh, yeah. She's just waiting for him to explain what he's actually talking about.
Exactly. She's like, I know this isn't 5 and 5. What the fuck is going on?
Just get to the point. Move it along. Heizo, come on.
She's like rolling her eyes.
Yeah. I only gave me an hour off to do this. So let's hurry it up.
She's like, I got a freaking ninja super soldier to take care of. Let's go.
I wonder if that's a conflict of interest. Her cousin's a part of the police and her ward is basically a little ninja.
Yes, secret agent ninja.
Yeah, secret agent kind of girl. Like she's stealing shit. And
they're different commissions too.
Uh-huh. It's just in the vein of him wanting the criminals to like know his name. Apparently it's working really well because his reputation has already spread among like all the criminal lords to the point that they now refer to Heizou as the Cyclone.
I hate that.
And someone would ask them why. Someone that got arrested, one of the guards was like, why do you call him Cyclone? And they're like, he's a calamity, a plague upon all us crooks.
Not a calamity.
Don't they know you have to tread lightly with that in Teyvat? Like, you can't just call things a calamity.
I know. But it's funny. I mean, as cocky as he is, his plan is working. Like, he is getting his name known by the criminal element in the highest of echelons, and they're all afraid of him.
I mean, maybe there's something to learn from Heizou. It's just fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But is he even faking it, right?
Well, I mean, from the start, he had to start, like, in the beginning, he was just like, yeah, nobody knows me, but whatever, I'm going to pretend like they all do.
Right.
He has his intuition on his side. Don't worry.
Yeah. His genius.
There's this one storyline where he's at the Tenryou Commission and someone like volunteers to be his assistant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uesugi.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't need an assistant, basically, and he walks away. And all the other guys are like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, you thought that you were going to get to be his assistant? He's like, well, he needs an assistant. And there you go. He does have an assistant. It's his intuition or some shit like that. And I was like, I hate that they know this too.
Yeah, so the Uesugi, I think that's how you say it, maybe. He asks Heizou, he's sort of like Heizou's fanboy. He's like, can I be your assistant? I'm really clever. And Heizou is like, my tuition tells me that you're not that clever. And Uesugi sort of says, well, maybe your intuition is wrong. And it makes everyone in the station burst into laughter that he said that to him. Heizou's like, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you'll make a great detective on your own. You should get your own assistant. And then kind of rushes away while everyone's still laughing at him. And he's kind of like, why are y'all laughing at me? And the other detectives tell him that Heizou already has an assistant. And so he's like, what do you mean he has an assistant? And they're like, he said it just now. He said, my intuition tells me. His intuition told him that's his assistant, his intuition.
It's funny because, like, when you read that part of the story, there could be totally, like, I would imagine, like, the main way that you would read it of everybody knows how good Heizou is. So, like, they're like, he doesn't need an assistant. But I couldn't help but read it like they're like, this fucking buffoon, and just like mocking him like he doesn't need an assistant. He has his intuition. Like, that's how I read it. Maybe I was in a mood. I don't know.
They're actually all laughing at Heizou.
Yeah.
And then
like, yeah.
And another thing, too, he does have a reputation around the police department, I guess.
Wait, it's not the Millilith?
No, there's no Millilith. This is the Shogunate. So he has this reputation at the police station of being this rule breaker. So he actually doesn't like report back to the station like he's supposed to. He hates police station food. It's his least favorite food. He doesn't do any like beats, like how police have like beats. They're like, oh, I always walk the same streets every day to check on things. He does not do that. He lives his own life. He does whatever he wants. And for the most part, they're chill with it. He just is out there with his assistant intuition doing his thing.
It drives Kujo-Sara crazy because he doesn't follow any of the rules, but she can't really say anything because he gets the best results.
Yeah, she says that he is such a headache. Like, that is like her exact word. It kind of gives younger brother vibes, though. Like, she's like, he's such a pain in my ass, but I love him and it's fine, I guess.
So now she's the general of the Tenryou Commission. Would the chief of the police be like directly under her, or is it like Kujo-Sara, Goru, chief of police, Heizou?
There's no Goru here.
Yeah.
He's on the other side.
Yeah.
Wrong guy.
Then they haven't merged the forces because they don't trust them, rightfully so.
Yeah, I do think that the police, what we think of as a chief of police, I'm assuming they report directly to her.
Yeah, because Sara is kind of involved at the station and she does work at the station, it seems. And that is mentioned during this martial arts challenge.
Yeah.
So apparently at the police station, they occasionally host like an internal martial arts contest. And it seems like mostly the younger new guys participate in this. It's a way of like kind of showing off to some of the older people, proving their worth. And everyone thought that Heizou would struggle with this because he doesn't look like a big tough guy. He's not Ito. He's Heizou. And he also doesn't like to fight with his hands. He has said that many a times. So they really didn't think he would do well. And so he decides that he's going to enter this competition. In this competition, you can bring whatever weapons you want, which is a lot. Like you could bring a spear, you could bring an umbrella gun, you could bring whatever your heart desires. And he quite literally just brought his fists to this knife fight. And he decided he wasn't even going to use his vision.
Cocky son of a bitch.
And he makes it all the way to the final.
And right as he's about to be crowned the champion, Kujo-Sara walks in and she's like, yeah, fuck that. I'm going to challenge him. Which, I'm just going to say this. I felt like that was a dick power move on her end.
Oh, yeah.
I did too. Especially because she changes the rules.
Yes.
Because the original rules are that you have to knock your opponent out of like a 50 pace ring. And she changes it to, instead of doing that, it's just the winner is the first one to touch their opponent with their weapon.
Right. So that means that Heizou has to touch her with his hands because he fists to a knife fight. Or in this case, to an archery challenge. Because Kujo-Sara has her fucking bow and arrow. So Sara shoots an arrow at him before he can move, and he catches it. And he caught it like 2 inches before it hit his heart. Which, first off, fucking throwback to his friend dying. And Heizou kind of like laughs and is like, well, you didn't give me enough time to move and avoid the arrow, and I had to catch it, so I guess you win. Which also, cocky son of a bitch. I caught your arrow. Got it.
And she's actually shook because most people couldn't do it, which is kind of messed up because does that mean you were expecting him to die?
Literally. She was like, this is my chance. I don't have to deal with him and his lack of reports anymore. This is what Jean's going to do to Kaya one day.
Yeah, but like she's kind of like proud and like gives him some praise and is like, you're skilled in both mind and hand. You'll do great things should you be more disciplined, because you're still late to fucking work.
Yeah, like he earns her respect a little bit, but you can tell she's kind of like, God damn it.
Yeah.
She tried to kill him. Like, she literally changed the rules so she could try and kill him.
Yeah.
Like, that is what it comes. The only thing I can think is that she thought he would try to move and that she would only hit, like, a shoulder or something.
Right.
But regardless...
Do you also get the vibe that she's a little threatened by him because he is earning the respect of like all of the people in the police station?
She's probably the reason why he's not getting any promotions. She's probably like, nope, keep that guy down where he is. You don't need my job.
But in the end, Heizou does end up getting a medal. So I don't know if they're like, fuck you, Sara, this was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they give him a medal.
Yeah.
Or if he's getting like a second place medal, I don't know. But he mails his medal to Kano. over at the shrine with a letter that says, "Here's a little something, cuz, for you to give to my old man when you've got the time. You know, just let him know that I haven't completely made a mess of his teachings and all."
That was nice.
Is it? He's kind of like, let my dad know that I am a successful martial artist, despite the fact that he thinks I'm a fucking failure.
Yeah.
That's what it screams to me.
I liked it because it's sort of at odds with like the rest of his personality, because he's like has a lot of confidence in his decisions, doesn't really experience like regret about what he does. You know, he's like, he plays by his own rules. He left home. He was like, just left a note and like pieced out and was like, I'm not going to do your job. I'm going out making a name for myself. But then, you know, he still has these moments where he like actually wants his dad to know that he's thinking of him. So I just appreciated that. It was like a little unexpected, I thought.
It kind of like in retrospect reminds me a lot of Gaming's story too. In that same, I mean, it's they're different, but it's still, you want that parental acceptance and to be like, look at the great things that I'm doing. I feel like their stories kind of mirrored one another.
Yeah, totally. It's just one was going to be a cop and the other was going to go to Broadway.
It honestly just makes me think of like the Neighborhood's Daddy Issues song. That's like all I could think of. Like,
from the show?
No, there's a song by the Neighborhood called Daddy Issues. That's all I could think about when I hear. I'm like, But now Heizou has also been involved in 2 events for the most part. I know I'm going to pronounce them wrong. He was involved in the Akitsu Kimodameshi event, which was the yokai event. We actually did an episode on that event. We did it in season 3, episode 57. So if you're interested in learning more about the event outside of what we might bring up now, you can definitely check that out. But this is the yokai event where we have a ping pong paddle causing a lot of issues. And Heizou is on the case the entire time.
It's like, explain this event with the most obscure kind of words you can. Like, instead of like, you know, he's trying to figure out who's behind it, be like, there's the ping pong paddle. It's causing havoc. And there's children in masks.
That's it. And Ito's trying to scare people, but he gets scared himself. Like, that's what it comes down to. Ito abandoned by his people.
Oh, wait, that's also when we got one of Paimon's best lines, too, when she goes, "Ooga booga booga." Oh, I just made myself laugh again, because that's how much it like, I haven't seen it in I don't know how long, and it, Paimon, the little scamp.
But this event is really the first time that we see Heizou outside of, like, if you do his hangout. Like, I think it might have released with him, even. And he's just like this mysterious character who's investigating, and like we pass out at one point and he's there when we wake up. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good."
It's like staring into our eyes.
I'm like, "I'm good, as long as you don't make that face while reading the book again."
That's for later.
We actually woke up to his moaning while reading.
No, it's worse than waking up in the summer event this year and Scaramouche being like, "Good morning, sunshine, you fucking dick." I'm like, But yeah, we don't find out a lot about Heizou in that event. It's definitely just getting to see his detective skills firsthand for the first time.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of almost you're going along with him where he seems to have already known the answer at the very beginning, but is like, let me bring you along so you could also figure it out for yourself.
Let me hold your hand and walk you through this.
Because like at the end, we're kind of like, what's going on? And he's just like, haven't you known all along? It was Colonel Mustard with the pipe.
He's like, maybe the ping pong paddle was the friends we made along the way.
No, but it was all at the same time. So sad. And then the other event that Heizou is pretty prominent in is the Iridescent Arataki Rockin for Life Tour de Force of Awesomeness event.
Can you say that again?
The Iridescent Arataki Rockin for Life Tour de Force of Awesomeness event.
What was that? One more time?
The Iridescent Arataki Rockin for Life Tour de Force of Awesomeness event.
Okay, got it.
Okay, what did I say? So, for travelers who need a refresher on this, we are joined by Marco Meatball once again as our favorite Fontanian musician, who is trying to finally create this festival that Xinyan actually was in Inazuma for back when we met Child in a domain, when the Labyrinth Warriors event happened that we covered last season. And that's why Xinyan was over in Inazuma, and then she was all fucked up with her passport and her visas and everything in between. And at this event, it's basically Ito and Marco Meatball working together to put on a show on Watasumi Island, which we know that Heizou loves Watasumi Island for whatever reason. Big fan.
It's where he vacations, yeah.
Which is like kind of weird though, when like you work for the shogunate, like you work in the Tenryou Commission, and as soon as the borders open, you're just gonna start vacationing in enemy territory.
Yeah, you don't give a fuck.
That's true.
It's his intuition. He's got to know his criminals before he can catch them.
Goru is not a fan.
And who's a fan of Goru? Nobody. Come on.
No, that's just you, Tiff. Everyone thinks that Goru is actually really sweet. Yeah, Miko's obsessed. No, Goru doesn't trust him because he doesn't trust like anyone that's part of the shogunate, basically. But he also finds him sneaky, and he thinks that Heizou does no work. He's like, I don't think he's ever actually working on any cases.
Well, I will say that there is like a branch of the hangout where that changes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What happens?
So during the hangout, you go to Watatsumi because basically the Tenryou Commission hires you to find Heizou because he disappears. Because he was just like, I'm just going to go to Watatsumi.
I'm just going to go on vacation.
I'm going to do whatever I want, basically. And so the Tenryou Commission tries to get Sango's detective agency to take the commission to find him. Sango, of course, is like, hell no, I'm not doing that. So Ryuji gets us to help them. So we take the commission on their behalf, and we go to Watatsumi and we find them. And then Heizou, once he gets there, he starts having these dreams where like something deep in the earth is telling him that something has disappeared from the island. And so he becomes curious. His intuition is like, let's find out what's going on here. And so he's like on the case, basically. And it's really actually funny because we first find Heizou being attacked and we think that we're saving him. Of course, he was just kind of letting us do that because he didn't actually need our help. But that's when he first flirts with us and calls us dreamy. And then he tells Paimon that it's the first time he's seen a voice, and says that, he's heard that the traveler isn't talkative because he already knew who we were by reputation, of course. And that Paimon must be our external voice, sort of like a vision is like the container for your elemental power. He's like, so Paimon, you must be the container for the traveler's voice. So it was kind of like a funny, like breaking the fourth wall kind of moment where he's like addressing the fact that Paimon always speaks for us. And Paimon gets like really flustered and is like, that's awful. I'm not a voice. I'm emergency food. And,
no.
And then is immediately like, no, wait. I didn't mean that.
Just tell us what you really are, Paimon.
And so then Heizou tells us about the dream. So Heizou senses that there's something missing from Watatsumi. And long story short, we find out that the thing that is missing, of course, is the island's vitality. But we find out that there's a caravan leader at Watatsumi, and that person, Goro, and Beto are all involved in an illegal smuggling operation that uses these Nobushi as middlemen. So they bring ships over from the trade association that are going to cost them an arm and a leg for Watatsumi to buy food from them and other supplies that they need, which they have to actually get imported because, they're living on barren soil. And these Nobushi people are like stealing these imported goods. And little do they know, Beto will like turn around and then steal them back, like kick all their asses and steal the goods back and give it to the soldiers on Watatsumi so that, it was stolen. They get the goods, but they don't have to pay the crazy prices for it. And they're basically doing this temporarily until this commodity bill will pass that will give a big price break for Watatsumi and getting those goods, which is something that Kokomi basically gets Yaimiko to give them a break on.
And isn't this commodity break referenced in Kokomi's character story?
Oh, I don't remember.
Where we run into like this weird scheme going on, and there's some soldiers like accusing someone else of like price gouging, and he's not. Or he's doing it legally in the moment. Mm-hmm. So that's a fun little wraparound.
Mm-hmm. Right. But yeah, so essentially Heizou, discovers that the thing he sensed was missing from the island was the island's vitality via the barren soil. But then he had also his intuition had also told him that Goro was involved in the first place. And so he has this nice moment at the end where he's like, but the bravery and the resourcefulness of Goro and the soldiers of the island, they have become the new vitality. They are now providing for the island, whereas the soil used to do that. Since the soil can't do that anymore, they now have Goro and his soldiers to do that for them. So it was like a nice little way to tie a bow on it.
So we're back to Wadasumi, and now we have a better understanding that people kind of maybe have respect for Heizou there. At the Iridescent Arataki Rockin for Life Tour de Force of Awesomeness event. And as a part of this event, we go around and we help like give out flyers and convince people to join, and like people donate things. So I think Heizou comes out to donate fruit, I believe, on behalf of the Tenryou Commission. He also leaves us a really nice note, and we find out that he has elegant handwriting.
Ooh la la.
But he's also investigating the puppy union.
What?
You sound so mysterious when you say it that
puppy
way.
union.
I mean, it just sounds like my dog is going to go on strike against me.
Yeah.
He's like...
He's already on strike against you.
The institution is unfair. Mr. Krabs is in there. It's Cosgrove every day.
And you're just over there kicking him in the face.
No, it was an accident. Cosgrove definitely has gone on strike before. So, it's fine. He hides sometimes because he's like, fuck you, you're leaving. Why should I come say goodbye to you?
Mm.
That's great. We are pro-union in this podcast.
We're pro-union, just not Cosgrove's. Just not my dog's union. I'm in a union. I love my union.
I am pro Cosgrove's union.
Whoa.
I say demand for more, demand for better treatment, demand to not get kicked in the face, Cosgrove.
Listen, the kick in the face was an accident.
Cosgrove only has like 5 beds. He deserves 10.
He has like 7, guys. I mean, my bed is his bed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He has 6 beds if you don't include my bed or the couch.
What about cocaine? Does he have cocaine?
No, we are unfortunate. Listen, my mom, when she died, she was a drug addict. I'm not trying to speak negative on the dead here, but if I had found a brick of cocaine, then Cosgrove would have cocaine, but we didn't. And you know what?
You would have had a much higher inheritance.
I would have sold that cocaine. Do you know that cocaine is worth more than sterling silver right now?
Oh.
Because I know that.
Interesting that you know that.
I just don't know how I would sell the cocaine if she had left me a brick of cocaine.
Are you the mastermind of an illegal smuggling operation?
Only Heizou would know. So, Travelers, just as a quick reference, we actually were talking about it before we start recording. A friend's cat.
Demonic cat.
That did cocaine once.
Which may or may not have been the reason why he was demonic. But he was an evil, evil soul.
But it was an accident.
Did it start like meowing aggressively? Like, meow?
No. It just started beatboxing. Meow, 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 meow. It actually just starts reciting everything from Cats the musical.
Oh,
but
right.
in meows, it's like meow, 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 meow.
I was gonna say he just turned into a bro and started working on Wall Street.
No.
He's already living in Brooklyn, so
He just becomes Doge, the dog with the muscle. But anyway, cocaine aside, Heizou does not find cocaine, but he finds out that like back during there's this story going around that during this war between the shogunate and the Watasumi army, that there were like these dogs that would go around and like save lives? ? It's been a while since I did the Iridescent Arataki Rockin for Life Tour de Force of Awesomeness event. Not been a while since I said
it. No.
And he is able to deduce during this time that Kokomi was actually working with Ayato and Fam to make this puppy thing happen. That's all I know.
Yeah. And Heizou's the one that deduced that they were working together during the war, which is a big deal. And Goro is like, what if this gets out and people find out that we were working with the Yashiro Commission during the war? And Kokomi's like, you know what? It's fine. Like, things are getting better. We're starting to work together now. I mean, if anything, it might just help people to know that we were already starting some friendly terms before the war ended, and that we can really trust them now. So it didn't really like lead to any kind of explosive reveal for them, but it was Heizou that figured it out.
And I will say Heizou did not stick around for the performance of Paimon and Ito singing.
Such a shame.
Which is curious because Heizou has actually heard Ito singing in jail because Heizou and Kuki have like a deal with one another where Kuki will sell him intelligence because all the Arataki gang is always collecting intelligence, even though they don't seem like all the brightest tools in the box, but they do it. And so she'll sell him the intelligence that she gets as long as he helps the gang out when they're in jail, whether that's delivering food, helping them get out of jail earlier, whatever it might be. And Heizou one day was delivering lavender melon, I believe, like roasted lavender melons to Ito. And when he came in, he heard him singing. And he was like, Ito is an amazing singer, but the lyrics were completely trash. Like, that's his exact quote. He said completely trash. So despite the fact that Heizou thinks he's a great singer, he must have thought the lyrics were going to suck that bad that he did not stick around for the performance.
Wow.
Oh. But that's really, Heizou, interestingly enough, not a lot of characters have a lot to say about him, which I think is kind of sad. For the most part, they all have the same idea that he isn't easy to get along with. That is Toma's exact quote. I also think that despite his flaws, he's great at his job and that the Tenryou Commission's lucky to have him. Kazuha is a little more like, he's remarkable. And Heizou is like, now that Kazuha's not a criminal and I don't have to arrest him, I can actually invite him to talk cases with me. So they're flirting, I think.
Yeah.
Ayaka, same thing, says that he works off of a moral compass that she doesn't necessarily understand, but she admires his work effort. One of my favorite stories, though, is that Kirara actually was hired by Heizou once he realized what type of yokai she was. And he was like, hey, can you help me find missing cats? And she was like, yeah, sure. Because she could talk to cats. I did not know that. And so she went to go rescue these cats and she overheard them being like, life is just so boring at the homestead. I wish I could go and explore the world.
I'm so tired of that litter box.
Yes. They only feed me chicken byproduct. And so Kirara's like, yeah, fuck that. She starts lying to Heizou and being like, I can't find any of these cats. But she's like, I think he's on to me.
Do you think they find Kirara and are like, girl, can you take this collar off of me, please?
Once they realize she could talk back, probably. They're like, where's our fish? Where's our package, bitch? Give us the goods. Screw these people paying you. Other than that, though, there's a few little facts about Heizou that I think are interesting. His constellation is Service Minor, which is the lesser deer in English. I don't understand that at all. I don't know if anyone else could find a rhyme or a reason to that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I don't feel like there's really much about him that is deer-like. So it is interesting.
Although I could imagine him with antlers.
Yeah.
Oh, we should go into Natland and put antlers on him. Stand in front of the deer, take a pic. He can become his full self.
I don't know. I felt like deer was the lesser deer being because he's treated within the police department from his dad. He's always kind of looked at as a junior, he's not as smart or as cunning as he really is. He was underestimated for the longest time.
Okay.
And I want to say that his first name translates to concealed fairness, but his surname actually translates to wild deer institution or something like that. So It is somewhere in his name as well.
I like the wild deer institution.
But I wonder, maybe it's a cultural thing because I don't know exactly how Japanese culture views deer.
True.
Well, they have a high respect for deer in Japan.
That's what I was thinking, right?
Yes. Because there's parks dedicated to...
Oh, really?
Well, don't they just famously wander around Kyoto? Oh, actually, I was just Googling it, and it says that deer are considered messengers to the gods in Shinto.
Oh, don't tell Heizou that. His ego will inflate so much. And then Heizou's name card is a tamari, and in a Japanese culture, tamari is a handball that's typically made from like different strings and stuff. It's like embroidered. Think hacky sack. And Heizou just sees a tamari as a thing to play with, basically. And I was like, why is this his name card too? Like, it's just like very curious what they decided to give to him. It feels
Well, see, that one to me made a little sense because isn't he like into just untangling the strings? It's sort of like what he does when he's solving a case, untangling the different threads.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense. I just thought he had no regard for the art of making a tamari. And the last thing I have to say personally about Heizou is that he looks like Toma and Luca from Star Rail had a baby. Like that, like I feel like he very much gives me Luca vibes, but he's also more Toma-y. I don't know. I just was like, the two of them had a baby and Heizou was born. Oh, actually, I do have one more thing. I lied, guys. He has a voice line about snow, and it says that he knows a story about a vengeful spirit on Dragonspine and asks if we want to hear it.
Ooh.
Oh.
And so I'm curious because we know from Mondstadt lore and Albedo lore and anything to do with Dragonspine lore, we have an episode on Dragonspine, we have an episode on Albedo, we have an episode about Shadows and Mist Snowstorms. We like check any of them out to learn more. But we know that Dragonspine is said to be haunted, basically. They don't use the word haunted, but that's the suggestion that the monsters are different there. They're all stronger. And we know that's because of Durin. Because his heart is there and his blood is, beating. In the words of Al, they are bathing in his blood at Dragonspine.
Mhm.
And the blood, we think, is full of abyssal corruption that is infecting the monsters. So I'm curious if he has heard of the vengeful spirit on Dragonspine as it is Durin. Does he know about Wappy somehow? Is there something else? Is it the Boar King?
Bork.
Also, I'm curious how he knows about Dragonspine. I wonder if Toma has told him a story, since we know that Toma is from Mondstadt originally.
Who's to say? So I love to dive into the characters' personalities when we do these character episodes.
Ooh.
And I wanted to share some words that I found have been used to describe him. Now, some of these are not the exact words, but they were the root of something that someone said. So they might have described him in a certain way, but the root word of it was whatever word I listed. And I sort of separated them into different categories because I think it's interesting to see which sort of category people are using to describe him the most. So the category, and some of this is like, yeah, they could be in different category, like more than one if you want to get picky about it, but this is just how I assign them. So for the category of smart, people calling him smart, people say that he's witty, meticulous, logical, sharp, efficient, brainy. That's six words. Visionary, then the visionary category, he's insightful, he's intuitive, he's imaginative. 3. And in the energetic category, this is the big one. Unrestrained, free-spirited, cheerful, happy-go-lucky, lively, talkative, active, restless, unruly, rebellious. 10 words. And the area of expertise, talented, skilled, cunning. And the area of being agitating, difficult, sneaky, scheming, and a headache, as Kujosara says. So I was looking, sort of evaluating his personality, and then I decided to take a Myers-Briggs test on 16personalities.com as Heizou. So I was answering the questions, pretending like, what would Heizou say to this question? Like, how would he answer it? And the result I got, I feel like describes him pretty well.
Okay.
So I was going to read you the description and you can tell me if you agree. So the result I got for Heizou is ENTP-A, which is the debater type. And it says, as an ENTP debater, you are a vibrant intellectual force, always ready to challenge ideas and push boundaries. Your quick wit and audacious spirit make you a natural provocateur, thriving on the mental gymnastics of a good argument. You see the world as a playground of possibilities where every conversation is an opportunity to explore new concepts and challenge the status quo. Your innovative mind is constantly buzzing with ideas, making connections that others might miss. You have an uncanny ability to see potential where others see problems, approaching challenges with enthusiasm and creativity. This makes you an invaluable asset in brainstorming sessions and think tanks where your out-of-the-box thinking can lead to groundbreaking solutions. However, your love for the theoretical can sometimes overshadow the practical. While you excel at generating ideas and strategies, you may find yourself losing interest when it comes to the nitty-gritty of implementation. The mundane details of everyday life can feel stifling to your free-spirited nature, leading to a tendency to procrastinate on routine tasks or abandon projects once the initial excitement wears off. Your charismatic nature and gift for debate make you a compelling communicator, capable of rallying others around your vision. Yet this same trait can sometimes come across as argumentative or insensitive if not tempered with emotional intelligence. Learning to balance your sharp intellect with empathy and tact is a key part of your personal growth journey, allowing you to harness your full potential as a visionary leader and innovator.
Okay.
Thoughts?
That was way too accurate. I hate it, honestly. It's a little frustrating. I'm like, wow. A lot just happened.
It felt perfect to me.
Yeah.
For the most part. But I had fun doing that, so I just wanted to share.
I know that you don't believe in horoscopes and that you're fine with people who just want to have like fun with it as long as they're not like hardcore believing in it.
As long as they're not making life decisions around it, because it has been scientifically disproven.
Okay, well, that was a big step. What are your thoughts on Briggs Myers? I'm just curious, like, do you like, I know personality tests people can be hit or miss about. I personally love Briggs Myers. I've been the same personality since I was like 14. Every time I take the test, I get the same thing. So I'm just curious what your like thoughts are on Myers as a Briggs personality test.
I know it's not like super scientific. I mean, that's why the people think astrology is fun, right? Because it tells you things about your personality that helps you sort of organize your identity in a way. And I think the same thing about a lot of personality tests, but a lot of personality types can be studied in terms of things like introversion and different metrics of what makes a person act in certain ways.
Okay.
There are things that you can study in that way, like locus of control, introversion, different things like that. So I do think that some personality tests do a better job of actually categorizing. I don't necessarily think that people should feel like, well, I am this personality and I have to act like X, Y, and Z. I mean, I think it's a lot more fluid than people want pretend. But yeah, I think it's fun, and I think it can be a helpful tool. The problem I have with astrology is that it's not accurate at all. Like personality tests, you're answering questions about your preferences and the way you live your life. So those are typically way more accurate than your birthday.
Yeah, like you're adding more into it of the way that you think.
Do you guys know your 16 personalities? Like which one is yours?
I know I have 16 personalities.
Oh my God.
I did, but I forgot what the actual thing was.
I do not know what mine is.
I'm an INFJ. And I don't live my life being like, I'm an INFJ and I must, live this life. Brandon, you're an INTP. And Tiff, you're an INFP. I made you guys take the test and I wrote it down.
Okay,
like,
you found it.
How do you know?
Yeah, do you want Al's an INFP? Just so everyone's aware. So yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So, congrats everyone.
We did it.
Yay!
Personality tests aside, we do have some making up to do. I scolded Kirara after last week where she abandoned us and ran off to, not be with us. So we do have 3 messages today from travelers.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And also, just so you guys know, I basically told Hirara that if she ever messed up again, I would tell Heizou that she's lying about the cats.
Wow.
Wow.
Blackmailing
her.
And I told her I'd take away her Neko whatever boots.
Her Nekomato boots.
Yeah, I'm going to take them. They're going to be Amanda's Nekomato boots. So our first 2 messages are actually really similar, so we're going to answer them together. Our first question comes from MJ, and they said, we get a fair few of floating companions from events and side quests, but if you could choose anything in the game to have as a companion, animal, object, Aranara, Melazine, enemy, etc., what would you choose? And for me, I'd love the silly little toucans from Sumeru to tag along, or maybe a Rift Town, MJ. No.
Ooh.
If it promised that to give me corruption damage. Amazing, though. So our first question about the little floaty things, what type of companion would you guys want?
What would you pick, Tiff?
I mean, I think I would have to pick a Timothy Chalamet this world.
That would be cute.
Yeah, he would love it up there.
I hate it.
He's so jealous of the flying squirrels in Natlan. He's gonna make his own little wings soon.
Oh no. You better be careful. He could die.
Well, yeah, you would know things about that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So you said I could choose anything from the game. I want Kaya on my shoulder.
Oh my God. I wasn't sure if it was going like character or miso soup.
No. I want like a little cheaty Kaya following me everywhere. Just like calling me a slacker, slightly flirting with me, offering me a drink.
And a thimble.
Yeah, it'd be great. I would really enjoy that. Me and Kaya are both Sagittariuses, so we get along great.
I love it. I just love it so much.
What about you, anti-astrology?
So I have 3, which is a surprise to no
You
one.
never have one.
In the vein of like the new pet that we got for the anniversary that like actually changes its animations based on its environment.
Mhm.
I also like have special assignments for my 3.
Oh my God.
So my first one is a mini abyss mage.
With his little chicken legs.
It has to shoot magic at enemies.
Okay, I like that. It's an assistant. Better than Paimon.
Would it be like an electro?
Or an ice one. I want one of every element.
You could just switch them out like the Sealies. Like,
And then I also thought like a mini Borg King would be cute that borks when people get too close.
Bark, bark,
you just want one of us to sit on your shoulder?
Yeah,
Bark, bark.
that'll work. But then my favorite one would be Rue's Feather. I want it to just follow me
Aw.
around. And then anytime that you view like a viewpoint, you interact with a viewpoint, it does like a little dance because it's excited to see the world.
Too soon.
Aw.
I know, too soon.
Can I change mine?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'd either want
course.
Chibi Kaya or I'd want a How.
of course.
And he's just
How?
like threatening to eat your soul the whole time. You stop and he's like, because he also wants to see the world. That's what made me think of it. That's his whole thing, his part of his contract.
Through your eyes, though. He wants to see the world through your
Inside
eyes.
your body.
Literally through your
He
eyes.
would just see me accidentally kicking Cosgrove like the whole time. Well, MJ, thank you for the question, but we do have a part 2 that is not from MJ. Sorry, MJ. You only sent one question this time. Our second question is also in relation to the little floaty friends. It comes from Vimal, and they said, is there any lore about our new pet? Or are these kind of floaty pets, like the octopus and the LED bags, I'm assuming they mean Sealies,
Which LED bags, perfect.
without Erminsul or any connection? And so before we did hop into this, I did just want to read the description of the Firstborn Fire Sprite, which is the little dragon buddy that we did get this year as part of the anniversary thank yous. It was one of many things we got, including many primos that did not give me any 5 stars that I wanted. I had to pay for Kanisha's weapon. Anyway, the Firstborn Fire Sprite is a tiny life form that emerged from a flame within a shell. There's something quite endearing about its over-reliance on the shell it found, protecting it at the moment it gained its sentience. Perhaps it feels secure in this closed-up world. After all, when its eggshell is completely enclosed, it reigns supreme in its own little universe. It is said that in ancient times, the primal fire burned with a similar life force. First off, I just want to say that this thing is totally an abyssal mind consciousness that Gold's turned into a thing.
You think so?
It gained its sentience.
Yeah. It's not evil.
But the Aranara and the Pari did the same thing.
They gain sentience?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Also, according to volume 1 of the Breeze Amidst the Forest book collection, it says typically when life arises from the elements, it either descends and becomes a slime or ascends and becomes a crystal fly. Rarely does this process give rise to dangerous elemental monsters. Elemental dragons are rarely seen and have the powers to match the gods of old. So I always took that to mean, and I mean, this is open to interpretation, but I always took that to mean that elemental dragons, they can arise from elemental power and gain sentience and like grow and become a dragon once in a great while. But normally it's just a slime or a crystal fly.
So this is like the 0.01% opportunity you have type of thing?
That's what I was thinking. But, I also think it could just be sort of like the Pari, which is the Clavarena like light energy that gained sentience after Simmer yeeted itself into the Amrita pool.
Oh boy, can't wait to talk about that soon.
You know what I mean? Like it could be like
Yeah.
born of a strong pyro elemental creature that
Mhm.
scattered its energy. So there's like a part of something with a consciousness that was elemental that like dissolved or scattered, and then a little tiny fragment of it regained a little bit of sentience.
Is this Moeka? You know, when she like yeeted herself into the flame to come in the future?
Ooh, that would make a lot of sense.
Well, I did want to point out though that it does have that like little wisp of hair that we see with Moeka and Hein, her sister.
Oh my god, this is Hein's way of saying I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Cries. So sad. But I will say, I'm gonna counter here with my stupid little theory about it being a gold thing. This dragon will hide in its egg when you're on Dragonspine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's just like, "Aw, how cute. It's hiding because it's cold. It's fire. It doesn't have to hide when it's cold."
Okay. That's a fun interpretation. I like that.
So, part 2 of Amal's question was just in general about the floaty pets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do these things have any connection to Urban Soul? And I think based on what you found in the book, Brandon, this one minimally definitely does.
Yeah, I think certain ones do.
Some of the other like floaty pets that I think have relevance, Lillipar.
Mm-hmm. Lillipar,
Definitely.
Sarush.
Shiki.
Oh, Shiki, our little labyrinth warrior.
Little paper guy. Yeah, he has a whole event. And there's another one, which I don't know if any of us have. Do you have Endora B? It is an Oceanid that was used to find other Oceanids in a Wishful Drops event from 2021. April, I think, 2021.
I don't think I do, even though I was playing during that time, but I must not have done that event because I don't think I have her.
A little tiny Oceanid, which the other water type one we have is the itty bitty Octobeady, which we received last anniversary when we were over in Fontaine. And I don't believe there's any lore about it, but it does have one of those interactive type things depending on its environment, like the new little dragon guy. When you go, because it's normally like basically in a little tiny fish tank, like the Sealies and stuff. And it's just like hanging out and kind of like boring and stuff. But as soon as you get in the water, it like it gets so excited and starts like floating around, and it's not in its little enclosure anymore.
Endora makes me sad because it looks like Anne from the Narcissus and Kreutz saga.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah.
You can call her Anne.
No. Another one that has some reference back to like things we've done in the game is Cloud Retainer's bird.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Damask device.
Although that is like a mechanical, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's made out of paper, she somehow.
But like she was trying to make something with it and it didn't work, right? And I think that's how we ended up getting it. I think it's like she was making like a sightseeing bird or sightseeing device.
Uh-huh.
It didn't work out the way that she had planned, so she gave it to us. She's like, here, this thing don't work. You take it.
Take my failure. And then the other, types we get are the LED bags, as Bamal said, which are the mini Sealies. They're just Sealies. Like, they're a miniature Sealy. The yellow one, that's my favorite one, says that it gives off a feeling of Mora. And then it represents good fortune. So I've always just assumed that the mini Sealies that are in these little jars are just things that we caught, ? Or were gifted, that someone else caught them.
One of the descriptions for one of them, I forget which one, it says that it's a Sealy, but instead of leading people somewhere, it follows people everywhere.
That's cute. It's like a protector instead of a guide.
Yeah, or just a protect me, like mommy.
No,
like following us around, like help, I've been exiled.
It's not borking. Bork. But those are all the little pets. So there's not like huge lore hidden in any of them besides, I would say, Lillipar and Sarush. But they're not hidden lore either. You just have to do the stories around them, which are a lot.
And those two are actually considered permanent gadgets. So anybody can get them. The other ones that we mentioned are considered memento gadgets. So they're only available during certain events. Although the mini Sealies, it's a reoccurring treasure hunt type event called Lost Riches. So there's a chance that you'll get a mini Celia another time too.
And if you are interested in learning more about Lillipar minimally, we can offer you an episode on that.
And Shiki.
Yes, we've done a lot of events around the desert. We have in season 3, episode 54, we have an episode called Lillipar and the Fall of Gorabad. So if you're interested in learning more about Lillipar, and if you're interested in learning more about Shiki, who is the paper ninja guy, we actually did a episode last season in season 4 on the Labyrinth Warriors event. It is episode 77. So that's how you can find out a little bit more lore specifically about those guys. And I will give you guys a hint. You might learn more about Sarouche soon. But thank you, Bamal. Thank you, MJ, for your questions about our little bitty pets.
Thank you.
Our last message comes from Aurelia. Thank you for sending the pronunciation of your name, by the way. I'm glad that you understand my troubles in life. They said, I've been binge watching your podcast for the last couple of weeks from episode 1, and I've been learning a ton about the lore that I never quite paid attention to from the beginning of the game. Thank God it's happening to someone. That was our goal here. It makes me very happy to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Having your podcast to listen to every day to get through my hard work day makes me a little bit more motivated and excited to work the next day just so I can listen in. So thank you all for what you do. It really means a lot to me, and I'm excited to hear more about Fontaine and other character episodes. Now, I actually had a question for you, and I was wondering if maybe Dia could be related to Vanessa in any way. When listening to your Dia episode, it got my mind racing once you guys said that maybe she was originally from Natlan. Just a crack theory, of course, but she kind of has a resemblance to her appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you, Aurelia,
Yes.
for the sweet message. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
It's very nice to hear. Yeah.
You know what I immediately thought of, though? We know that Vanessa's from Natlan, right?
From the Badlands.
Yeah. The Barren Wastes, yes.
She's of the Murata people.
Yeah, the Murata people were like, we know they were wandering around for a while, sort of like homeless, leaderless. But I immediately thought of, going back to our last episode, we know that people from Natlan can't really leave without, suffering, like they're not protected by the Wyob
Yeah.
if they leave Natlan. So I thought that was fun to think about, Vanessa and the Natlan people and the manga, wandering and suffering and becoming enslaved. I mean, is that because they were not protected by the Wyob because they left? Or was that not in play at the time?
I don't think everything with the Wyob comes into play until the Cataclysm.
Okay.
So, and Vanessa and everything was pre-Cataclysm.
Why do you think that is?
So, Moeka says something at one point about the ley lines and how they've never had the strongest ley lines, and that's why they got hit so hard. So I assumed that when they got hit hard during the Abyss, it just totally fucked everything up, and the Wayobs had to step in place at that point.
Oh, okay. I thought they were just always there, but maybe...
It's totally a possibility. I have this weird thought in my head that the whole Wayob protection thing is bullshit. And that is the way that they've been making sure that the heroes they're waiting for all stay in Natlan. Because
that's interesting.
Imagine Amanda. I'm Amanda.
I'm
6.
Amanda.
Imagine my 6-year-old ass gets an ancient name, and then my parents decide to move to Inazuma. Well, I would have been stuck there for quite some time during, the closing of their borders. And now Moeka is shit out of luck, and I'm never going to realize my full potential with my ancient name. So, I mean, that could be false. We haven't seen anything to prove yay or nay to that, to be honest.
Yeah.
In that case, wouldn't the Wyob just choose a different person to give the ancient name to?
No, because someone's already been given the name. You have to die.
What do you mean you have to die?
Only one person gets the name at a time. If I'm given the ancient name, like say I'm giving Moeka's name, right? No one else can have Moeka's name. Now, from what we understand about what the Wayobs and Moeka is doing with these ancient names, is that they are reincarnating basically these heroes of the past. So if Moeka is one of those heroes of the past that you need to be reincarnated, and the person with Moeka's ancient name moves and never reaches their full potential, you'd have to wait for them to die until you could give the Moeka name to someone else.
Okay.
I also just want to point out, just because this episode will be released right after 5.1 in our second part of our Archon, I just want to point out too that this is before any of us have played the 5.1 part of the Archon. This is still our thoughts based on the original 5.0 Archon quests.
Yeah, great point, Tiff. Yeah, we haven't had time to play it. At least I haven't.
But I was going to say, it also is just this is like a side note, is the fact that Vanessa and her people were like wandering leaderlessly away from Natlan, is that part of the reason maybe that Venti dislikes one of the Pyro Archons? Because he like had to save them basically. He was like,
Yeah,
why isn't this hoe taking care of their people?
Yeah, they did leave intentionally. We know that there was a Pyro Archon back then.
We know that that's like part of the storyline of the people of Natlan being sort of scattered one point in history, that there's something that happened in Natlan that caused that to happen. So I'm just curious if like Venti is, if the voice lines that Venti has are about whoever the Archon was at that time.
Not about Moika.
Right. Or even like the one right before Moika necessarily.
So there's at least 4 people who have been the Pyro Archon. And we know that Murata is one of those Archons, and that is the one that Venti calls obnoxious and, talks to Vanessa about. There was at least 2 Archons after that before Moika was reborn. One of them being Moika. Yeah.
Good point.
You have the first Pyro Archon who established like all these rules that we talked about last week that Brandon had mentioned. And then you have Murata. And then I don't know if Moika, I'm assuming Moika comes next. And then you actually have a Archon of Cochinina. And again, first off, probably pronouncing it wrong. But second, we haven't played 5.1. So if more lore has come out about this, please excuse us. But this was a Pyro Archon who was from like the people of the Springs originally. They were like a surfer.
Tubular.
Surfing around on that lava.
Yeah, and she did something with like a volcano lord. I don't really know all the lore. I just remember reading up on it a little bit for last week's episode, for our episode about Natlan so far. So I don't know if Cochinina is the one that Venti calls warmongering, or if he is just still talking about Murata, because we also know that like after the cataclysm, Venti fell asleep and Moika was the Archon, and he woke up and Moika was the Archon again. So I don't know like what
Venti thinks she was just the same one.
You think that? I do want to say too that this whole like Natlan curse brings up a lot of questions too, because like how does it relate to generations? Like if Vanessa did have kids who are in Mondstadt, we've all suggested that D-Luke is possibly a descendant of Vanessa. How does that work?
That was the other thing I was going to get to, is that one theory you could have is that there are descendants of Vanessa's family, but maybe they're through her sister, Lynn, or Lind/Linda, whatever her name is, because we don't really know what happened to her.
But wouldn't she still be a Natlanian? So wouldn't all this still affect her?
What do you mean? What would affect her?
Well, like this curse and everything would still like be in effect because Lind was from Natlan.
Well, in theory, unless there was something that... Are you talking about like the Wyob not protecting them?
Yeah, this like curse of the Wyob needing to protect them. If that was around at the time that Vanessa and Lynn were in Mondstadt, like Lynn's lineage might be affected if it affects older lineages. It's very confusing.
Well, I don't know, because there's weird rules where it's like that I think are based on like where you're born, maybe. Because like if you're originally from Conria, you got one part of the curse, and then if you were from a different region and just chose to live there, you got a different kind of curse.
And then if you were just out and about when it all happened, potentially you were just a Roman.
So you're suggesting that this quote unquote, we can consider it a curse of Natlan, where they're not protected and they can't leave, possibly could have affected people differently.
Curse might be strong, but yeah, you're definitely affected negatively if you leave. So it's sort of like a curse, I guess.
The people see it probably as a curse because they're stuck and they can't explore.
Probably. But yeah, I don't know if that would apply to their lineage if they gave birth outside of Natlan, is what I'm saying. So it'd be easy to explain away that descendants of people originally from Natlan do not have that. And I mean, I think it looks like they remember in the manga, they talk about how the people of Natlan are the redheads of Teyvat. You very rarely see people with that hair color. So it does seem to me like D-Luke is a candidate for being of there. Now, Dia, does not have that hair, but she does have the fierce fire power, and she is an orphan. Wasn't she just found out in the desert?
Yep.
So it's entirely possible that, she was born of a Natlannian out in the desert and then left there, and they had to hightail it back to Natlan.
Yeah.
Because they weren't doing too well.
Yeah, because I guess if you're not born in Natlan, you aren't considered like a child of the land.
What if you got pregnant in Natlan and you were like, I don't want my baby to be stuck here forever, so I'm going to go make sure that I deliver them outside of the region so they're not affected by the Wyob.
That sounds like what happened to Bennett.
Yeah, maybe. Although he has that bad luck curse.
There's a lot of curses, but Wika told us that it's a thing that can happen. So I agree. I think it's totally possible that Dia could be from a descendant of Natlan, even if it's like a 5th generation there thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's Vanessa's line or her sister's.
Yeah, or even generally Natlandian.
Yeah.
I know the question was more about Vanessa, but I would think that it could be happening generally. Who knows? Ooh.
It's fun to think about.
Thank you, Aurelia, for the question. That is all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to see more and let us know what episodes you'd like to see in the future, or if you absolutely hated this episode and you want to tell us all about why, you can email us at talesoftevatpod@gmail.com. You can give us a follow on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat. Additionally, you can feel free to rate us on any podcasting platforms or buy us a cup of coffee on Ko-fi, where all the funds go to our editing softwares and making sure that we're able to put out an A++ product for all the travelers out there. Next week, we are going to be talking all about Pari and the Pari land, as we call it here. So we'll be coming back to the desert once again. We do this every season.
Always back to the desert.
Get your divine bird feathers ready.
Yes, so get your sunblock out. Make sure to pack lots of water.
Don't eat yourself into an Amaruta pool.
Not yet. Until then, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Sherlock nerds. I know you like them private dicks.
We know that Heizou does. That's the book he was reading.
Oh my God.
He liked it so much he became